"Your baby is inside me, Alexander." Those 5 words filled the grand ballroom of the Whitmore estate and changed the air in an instant. Vanessa Monroe stood beneath the crystal chandelier, wearing an elegant white designer dress, one hand resting gently on her stomach as hundreds of wealthy guests turned toward her in surprise. Around her were CEOs, investors, and some of the most powerful families in New York. They expected a business announcement that evening. They never expected this. Alexander Whitmore, the billionaire founder of Whitmore Global, stood completely still. For years, he had built companies, purchased skyscrapers, and appeared on magazine covers as one of America's most successful entrepreneurs. But behind the private jets and billion-dollar deals was a man who went home every night to his silent mansion. A family was the one dream money had never been able to buy. Vanessa smiled as she looked into his eyes. "We're finally going to have the family you always wanted," she whispered. The room erupted in applause. Glasses lifted. Cameras flashed. Everyone saw the perfect moment between a billionaire and his future wife. Everyone except a 4-year-old girl sitting quietly near the kitchen doorway. Lily Carter was not supposed to be noticed. She was the daughter of Emily Carter, one of the housekeepers who worked inside the Whitmore mansion. Her little blue dress was simple. Her shoes were old but carefully cleaned, and beside the luxury gowns and expensive watches around her, she looked like she belonged to a completely different world. Emily had always taught her daughter one rule when they entered places like this: be kind, be respectful, and never cause trouble. But Lily was not watching the diamonds or the decorations. She was watching Vanessa. The little girl tilted her head, confused. Something did not feel right. Earlier that afternoon, while coloring quietly near the hallway, Lily had heard Vanessa speaking on the phone. Adults often forgot she was there. They walked past her like she was part of the furniture. But Lily listened. She remembered voices. She remembered words. And she remembered the strange conversation Vanessa never thought anyone heard. Now, as everyone celebrated, Lily slowly reached for her mother's hand. Emily looked down and noticed the concern on her daughter's face. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she whispered. Lily looked across the room at Vanessa, then back at her mother. In the smallest voice, she said, "Mommy, why is she lying?" Emily froze. "Lily, what do you mean?" But before the little girl could answer, Vanessa noticed them staring. Her warm smile disappeared for just a second. A look of fear flashed across her face before she quickly covered it. Nobody else saw it, but Alexander did. For the first time that night, doubt entered his mind. Sometimes the smallest voice in the room carries the truth everyone else is too distracted to hear. Real value is never measured by age, money, or status, but by the courage to speak when something feels wrong. And what Lily revealed next would turn the happiest announcement of Alexander Whitmore's life into the moment that exposed everything. The strange thing about a beautiful lie is that from a distance, it can look exactly like a dream. For years, the Whitmore estate had been a symbol of everything people believed success looked like. The mansion sat behind tall iron gates on a private road outside New York City, surrounded by acres of perfectly maintained gardens and trees that changed colors with every season. The newspapers often called it a glass castle because of its towering windows, polished stone walls, and breathtaking views of the city skyline. Inside, every hallway reflected wealth. Marble floors shined beneath golden lights. Rare artwork covered the walls. The dining room table was long enough to welcome 30 guests, and every detail looked carefully designed. But the one thing the mansion never truly had was warmth. Alexander Whitmore learned that success could fill rooms with expensive things, but it could not fill an empty chair across the dinner table. At 42 years old, he had spent almost half his life building Whitmore Global from a small technology company into an empire worth billions of dollars. People respected him. Competitors feared his decisions. Employees admired his discipline. But very few. People knew the quiet man behind the powerful name. Alexander still kept an old photograph of his parents on his office desk, a reminder of the simple home he came from before the world knew who he was. His father once told him that a person's true worth was shown by how they treated someone who had nothing to offer them. Alexander never forgot those words, but the world around him often did. The more successful he became, the harder it was to know who valued him and who valued what he owned. Then Vanessa Monroe entered his life. To everyone else, she seemed like the answer to everything missing. She was confident, educated, and comfortable in the same wealthy circles Alexander worked in every day. She knew exactly what to say during charity events. She knew how to impress investors and how to smile perfectly for every camera. His business partners praised her. Society magazines called them the perfect couple. People believed Vanessa brought happiness back into the lonely billionaire's world. But perfection is sometimes just another kind of mask. The staff inside the Whitmore mansion saw moments that guests never witnessed. They saw how quickly a smile could disappear when important people walked away. They heard the difference between a voice used for cameras and a voice used behind closed doors. Emily Carter noticed it too, but she stayed silent. She needed this job. She needed stability for Lily. Every morning, while others entered the mansion through the front doors wearing designer suits, Emily entered quietly through the staff entrance carrying her daughter's small backpack. Two different worlds existed under the same roof. One world was filled with diamonds, influence, and power. The other was built on hard work, sacrifice, and invisible kindness. And no one inside that mansion realized the smallest person living between those two worlds was about to uncover the biggest secret hiding inside it. The greatest secrets inside the Whitmore mansion were never discovered by the powerful people walking through its front doors. They were noticed by the quiet ones everyone forgot were there. Long before that unforgettable evening, Emily Carter and her daughter, Lily, had already learned what it felt like to move through a world where people looked directly at them but rarely saw them. Emily was 29 years old, a single mother who worked long hours to provide her daughter with the future she never had. Every morning before sunrise, she prepared Lily's breakfast in their small apartment, packed a little bag of coloring books and snacks, then took the bus across the city toward a neighborhood where every house looked like it belonged in a magazine. The difference between their two worlds was impossible to ignore. At home, Emily carefully planned every dollar she spent. At work, she cleaned rooms filled with decorations that cost more than months of her salary. But she never complained. She believed dignity was not something given by wealth. It was something carried inside a person. Lily watched her mother closely. Even at 4 years old, she noticed things other people missed. She noticed how Emily smiled kindly at people who barely remembered her name. She noticed how her mother polished every surface with care, even when nobody thanked her. And most importantly, she noticed that the people who spoke the loudest were not always the ones telling the truth. Whenever Lily came to the mansion, Emily reminded her of the same lesson. Be polite, sweetheart. Be patient. Some people may not notice us, but that does not change who we are. Lily would nod seriously, holding her stuffed bunny and sitting quietly in the corner of the kitchen. The staff quickly got used to seeing her there. To most people, she was just a quiet little girl drawing pictures while adults handled important matters. But Lily was listening. She remembered small details. She remembered conversations. She remembered promises people forgot they made. Alexander was one of the few people in the mansion who treated Lily differently. When he passed through the kitchen during his late nights at work, he always greeted Emily by name and sometimes asked Lily about her drawings. To him, kindness was not determined by someone's position. But as his relationship with Vanessa became more serious, things inside the mansion slowly changed. The warmth Alexander created began to disappear whenever he was away. Staff members became nervous. Conversations stopped when Vanessa entered a room. Emily noticed the change but kept her concerns private. She could handle being overlooked, but she worried about what Lily was beginning to see. Because children often recognize what adults explain away. They see the difference between kindness that is real and kindness that is performed. And one ordinary afternoon, while Lily sat silently with her coloring book, she would hear a conversation that revealed Vanessa Monroe was hiding something much bigger than anyone imagined. Sometimes the most dangerous secrets are not hidden in dark places. They are hidden behind perfect smiles, expensive clothes, and the image everyone wants to believe. Vanessa Monroe understood the world of wealth better than most people. She knew how to walk into a room and make everyone look at her. She knew which words impressed executives, which stories gained sympathy, and exactly how to appear like the perfect partner for a man like Alexander Whitmore. At charity events, she greeted guests with elegance. In interviews, she spoke about kindness and creating a better future. Online, thousands of people admired the beautiful life she presented. To the outside world, Vanessa was everything a billionaire should want. But inside the quiet halls of the Whitmore estate, away from the cameras and attention, another side slowly appeared. The employees noticed it first. Small moments. Small changes. The way her voice became colder when important guests were gone. The way she remembered the names of wealthy visitors, but forgot the names of people who worked there every day. Emily Carter never judged her. She simply watched. Years of working around powerful people had taught Emily that a person's true character was usually revealed in ordinary moments, not public ones. Still, Emily kept her distance. She was there to work, support Lily, and build a better life. She never expected to become part of a secret that could change Alexander's entire future. One quiet afternoon, the mansion felt different. Alexander was away at an important meeting downtown, and most of the staff were preparing for the upcoming celebration. Lily sat near the hallway with her coloring book, carefully drawing a picture of the gardens outside. She was so quiet that Vanessa did not notice her sitting behind the large decorative plants near the sitting room entrance. Vanessa stepped inside while speaking on the phone. Her sweet public voice was gone. This voice was sharper, more impatient. Lily continued coloring at first, but then she heard Alexander's name. She stopped. Vanessa lowered her voice, believing she was completely alone. She talked about plans, timing, and making sure everything happened before anyone asked too many questions. Lily did not understand the adult details, but she understood one thing clearly. The happiness Alexander believed was real was not the same story Vanessa was telling when nobody important was listening. Then came the sentence Lily would never forget. Once Alexander believes the baby is his, everything becomes mine. Lily looked up. Her little hand froze above the paper. She knew secrets were not always bad. Birthday surprises were secrets. Gifts were secrets. But the way Vanessa spoke did not sound like happiness. It sounded like someone pretending. A few seconds later, Vanessa ended the call and turned toward the hallway. For a moment, her eyes met Lily's. The room became completely silent. Vanessa realized the one person everyone ignored might have heard everything she was never supposed to know. The moment Vanessa saw Lily standing there, she understood something most adults in the mansion still did not. A quiet child could remember the words everyone else forgot. But instead of showing concern, Vanessa smiled softly and walked toward her as if nothing had happened. She reminded Lily that grown-up conversations were often confusing and told her she must have misunderstood what she heard. Lily wanted to believe her. She wanted every person in that house to be as kind as her mother always taught her to be. But the feeling in her heart did not go away. Days passed, and the night of the celebration finally arrived. The Whitmore estate transformed into a world of music, lights, and expensive decorations. Guests arrived in luxury cars. Reporters waited near the entrance. Everyone came to celebrate what they believed was the beginning of Alexander's happiest chapter. But while the entire room looked at Vanessa with admiration, Lily quietly watched from beside her mother. She saw the same smile Vanessa gave everyone else. The perfect smile. The practiced smile. Then Lily remembered the phone call. She remembered every word. Her little hands held onto Emily's dress as she struggled with what to do. Emily looked down and immediately knew something was wrong. Before she could ask, Lily stepped forward. She was not trying to embarrass anyone. She was not trying to interrupt the special moment. She only believed that telling the truth mattered. She walked carefully toward Alexander and gently touched his sleeve. Alexander looked down with the same kindness he had always shown her. "What is it, Lily?" he asked. The room became quieter. Lily looked nervous, but she spoke. She told him that Vanessa had said something different when she thought nobody was listening. The happiness in the room slowly disappeared. Every conversation stopped. Vanessa's expression changed for only a second before she quickly stepped forward. She laughed softly and shook her head. She told everyone Lily was just a child with a big imagination. Then she looked at the guests with hurt in her eyes and asked how anyone could question her because of something said by a little girl who did not understand adult conversations. The words landed heavily. Some guests looked away. Others whispered. Emily immediately stepped beside her daughter, protecting her from the embarrassment of the moment. She apologized for the interruption, but Lily looked up and repeated that she was only saying what she heard. Alexander stood between two worlds. On one side was the woman everyone believed was perfect. On the other was a child who had nothing to gain from speaking up. For the first time, he did not know which voice to trust. But just when it seemed like Lily's words would be forgotten forever, she remembered one tiny detail that Vanessa never expected her to notice. The smallest detail in Lily's memory was about to challenge the biggest story in the room. While everyone waited for an explanation, Lily held her mother's hand and looked up at Alexander. She was nervous. She could feel the attention of people who were older, richer, and more powerful than her. But she also remembered what Emily always told her. The truth did not become less important just because someone small was the one saying it. Alexander lowered himself closer to Lily's height and spoke gently. He did not ask her to prove anything. He did not make her feel afraid. He simply asked her what she remembered. Lily looked across the ballroom at Vanessa, then said the one thing nobody expected. She remembered the red dress. For a moment, nobody understood why those words mattered. But Alexander did. His expression slowly changed. Earlier that week, Vanessa had told him she spent that entire afternoon away from the mansion handling a private appointment. She had even explained why she could not answer his calls for several hours. But Lily described seeing her inside the estate at that exact time, wearing the red dress Vanessa had shown him only once before. The room became quieter. Vanessa quickly smiled and said Lily was mistaken. She explained that children mix up days and memories all the time. Some guests nodded, ready to accept the simple explanation. But Alexander was no longer listening only to words. He was watching reactions. He remembered his father's lesson. People reveal themselves in small moments. Not when they prepare a speech, but when something unexpected happens. Alexander calmly asked his security manager to check the mansion's entry records. He did not do it to embarrass anyone. He did it because the truth mattered more than appearances. Minutes felt like hours as everyone waited. Emily quietly held Lily close, worried that her daughter would blame herself for the tension in the room. But Lily did not look away. She knew what she heard. She knew what she saw. Finally, the information arrived. The records confirmed that Vanessa had been inside the mansion during the exact time Lily remembered. The red dress, the hallway, the phone conversation. One small observation from a 4-year-old had revealed a question nobody else thought to ask. Vanessa's perfect confidence began to fade. For the first time that evening, the image everyone admired started to show cracks. Alexander did not raise his voice. He did not let emotion control him. He simply looked at Vanessa and asked why a child's memory matched the evidence better than her explanation. The entire mansion waited for an answer, but the silence that followed said more than any excuse could. The entire room froze when they realized the only person telling the truth was the child everyone had ignored. Because the next discovery would reveal that Lily had not only remembered a conversation, she had unknowingly protected Alexander from a secret that went far deeper than anyone imagined. The truth that started with a child's simple memory was about to uncover a story far more complicated than anyone expected. Alexander had spent his entire career studying details other people ignored. It was how he built his company, how he protected thousands of employees, and how he recognized problems before they became impossible to fix. But this time, the detail he almost missed came from a little girl holding her mother's hand in the corner of his own home. The celebration ended early that evening. Guests quietly left the Whitmore estate with more questions than answers. Alexander did not want rumors. He did not want public embarrassment. He only wanted honesty. The next morning, he asked a trusted family advisor and his private team to carefully review the situation. Every message, every timeline, and every unexplained detail was checked with patience. Slowly, the beautiful story Vanessa created began to look different. Small inconsistencies appeared. Dates did not match. Explanations changed. The confidence she once had started disappearing. For the first time, Alexander realized he had been listening to what he wanted to believe instead of looking at what was actually happening. Meanwhile, Emily worried about Lily. She wondered if such a young child should have carried the weight of speaking up in a room full of adults. But when she asked Lily why she said something that night, Lily's answer was simple. She said she did not want Alexander to be sad later. Those words stayed with Emily because they came from a place without pride or personal benefit. Lily had nothing to gain. She only cared. Then another unexpected discovery appeared. While looking through Lily's belongings from the mansion, Emily found the small learning device Lily often used to practice stories and songs. Lily loved recording herself describing her drawings and the things she saw each day. On the afternoon Vanessa made that phone call, Lily had been recording a story about the garden picture she was coloring. In the background was something nobody knew existed. A piece of the conversation Vanessa thought had disappeared forever. When Alexander heard it, he became completely silent. It was not anger that filled the room. It was disappointment. The hardest truth was realizing someone he trusted had chosen an illusion over honesty. When Vanessa was finally asked about everything, there were no more perfect explanations. No carefully chosen words could change what had been revealed. The person everyone overlooked had noticed what everyone else missed. A 4-year-old child, without power, money, or influence, had protected someone simply by telling the truth. Alexander looked at Lily differently from that day forward. Not as the housekeeper's daughter, not as a child who accidentally discovered a secret, but as a reminder that wisdom can come from the most unexpected places. And what Alexander decided to do next would change Emily and Lily's lives forever. The decision Alexander made after discovering the truth was not about money, reputation, or protecting the image of his empire. It was about remembering the kind of person he wanted to be before the world taught him to measure success with numbers. For days after everything happened, the Whitmore mansion felt different. The same marble floors reflected the same golden lights, but something important had changed. The silence that once came from pretending everything was perfect was replaced by the peace that comes when the truth is finally allowed to exist. Vanessa quietly disappeared from the life she had worked so hard to create. The attention, the admiration, and the influence she valued slowly faded because people finally understood that appearances could never replace honesty. Alexander did not celebrate her downfall. He only hoped she would learn that trust was something no amount of status could buy. But his greatest regret was not about Vanessa. It was about Emily and Lily. He realized two people had been walking through his home every day showing kindness, patience, and honesty, while he was too distracted by the image of a perfect future to notice the good already around him. One afternoon, Alexander asked Emily and Lily to meet him in the garden behind the estate. It was the same garden Lily had been drawing when she first discovered the secret. Emily arrived nervous, unsure if everything that happened had created problems for her job. Instead, Alexander looked at them with gratitude. He apologized, not because Lily told the truth, but because she ever felt like her voice might not matter. Then he looked at Lily and said the words she would remember for the rest of her life. Everyone saw a maid's daughter. I should have seen a little girl telling the truth. Lily smiled shyly and held her mother's hand a little tighter. For the first time, Emily felt that someone truly saw them. Not as employees, not as people from a different world, but simply as human beings. In the weeks that followed, Alexander created new opportunities inside Whitmore Global focused on helping hardworking families like Emily's. He asked Emily to help lead one of those projects because she understood challenges that wealthy executives often overlooked. Her kindness became her strength. Her experiences became her wisdom. And Lily continued being exactly who she always was. A curious little girl who noticed details, cared about people, and believed telling the truth was important. The story of what happened inside the Whitmore mansion became a reminder that the smallest voices are sometimes the ones the world needs to hear the most. Because real courage is not about standing above others. It is about standing for what is right. But years later, Alexander would reveal one final lesson from Lily's actions that changed the way. Thousands of people saw kindness, success, and true value forever. Years later, when Alexander looked back at the moment that changed everything, he realized the greatest lesson did not come from a business victory, a financial success, or a powerful person sitting across a conference table. It came from a little girl who simply believed the truth mattered. The Whitmore estate was no longer remembered as a place filled only with luxury and wealth. It became known for something far more meaningful. It became a place where every person's voice mattered. Alexander changed the way he led his company. He spent less time focusing only on reports and numbers and more time listening to the people behind them. He visited employees, learned their stories, and reminded his leaders that respect should never depend on someone's job title, bank account, or social position. The lesson Lily taught him quietly reached thousands of people. Emily Carter also discovered a new chapter of her own life. For years, she believed working hard in silence was the only way forward. But Alexander helped her see something she had never allowed herself to believe. Her compassion, patience, and understanding of people were not small qualities. They were strengths. She used her new role to support other hardworking families, creating programs that gave people opportunities they once thought were impossible. And Lily grew up surrounded by a lesson many people spend their whole lives trying to learn. Being important is not about having the loudest voice in the room. It is about having the courage to use your voice for something good. She never saw herself as the little girl who exposed a secret. She simply remembered the day she chose honesty, even when honesty felt difficult. The world often teaches people to admire expensive things, beautiful homes, powerful names, perfect appearances. But life has a way of revealing that the things we cannot see are usually the things that matter most. A kind heart, a truthful voice, a person who does the right thing when there is nothing to gain. Alexander once believed his dream was to build a bigger empire. But after everything happened, he understood that a successful life was not measured by what someone owned. It was measured by the people they helped, the kindness they showed, and the trust they earned. Sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the one who sees what everyone else misses. Sometimes the smallest voice carries the biggest truth. And sometimes a child reminds the entire world that dignity does not come from wealth or status. It comes from character. If this story touched your heart, share where you are watching from in the comments below. And always remember, the next person who changes your life may be someone the world forgot to notice.